So I'd like to invite everyone to sit up, or if you're lying down, that's fine as well. And start with 3 beautiful deep breaths and sensing into the body. And noticing the various body sensations that may be present. It could be some tingling sensations, some tightness, tension. Just take note where they are. This enables us to arrive not just in the body, in front of your computer or mobile phone, but also arrive in your mind. And just dropping into your breath, wherever you feel your breath is. And you may notice there are thoughts coming up in your mind, and that's perfectly normal. As you sit here in silence and your eyes are closed, there may be sounds around you. Notice the chatter that goes on in the mind if it's not silent. So do you realize that this is the world that you actually live in? The world of your mind. You may be in the same family, living in the same household, but your experience of life, your experience of the world could be so different from your sibling or from your spouse or your parent. And this is the world we're talking about, the inner world, and how the inner world experience affects the outer world experience. So do you know how to let go of the thoughts that are in the mind? Are you able to just refocus on the breath and feeling a sense of peace and contentment? Or some of these thoughts just won't let you go. Keep coming back, causing you to feel uncomfortable or sad or even grief or angry, resentful. So the world in your mind is the real world you're living in. When you lack peace, it's all in the mind. When you don't feel happy, it's also in the mind. And when you taste joy and happiness, it's also in the mind. So now I'd like to invite you to focus on 3 more breaths and slowly opening your eyes. Okay. So today's session, the theme of the conference is enhancing performance and resilience. And this session is going to be on inner and outer transformation. So I'm going to be talking about the inner transformation from a perspective of the mind. And Dr. Naras Lapsis, who is a specialist in longevity, will be talking about the transformation of how the body affects your happiness and your longevity. So I'm going to now share screen because I'm going to use some slides. So my name is Angie Chew. Sorry, I didn't change it on my title there. I will do it right now. Okay, so you know who I am now. So I'd like to start off by asking you the question, are you happy most of the time? If your answer is yes, keep doing whatever you're doing because you're obviously doing the right thing. And you can actually now disconnect from this session. If you're not happy most of the time, the question is, do you want to be happy? Now, it may seem like a silly question, but sometimes people actually don't make the choice of wanting to be happy. And if you don't want to be happy, you can also sign out of this session because you can keep doing whatever you're doing and continue being unhappy. But if you want to be happy more of the time, then it's time to change something. And that change has to come from you, not anyone else, and not because someone is telling you, but something inside you is actually prompting you. What takes away our happiness are our emotions. Often we feel anger, and that is normal. Becoming mindful doesn't mean that there will be no more anger or frustration. There will continue to be. But what is the difference is that we can shorten the period of the anger or the frustration, irritation that we feel. Because when we are aware, we can actually do the intervention to dissolve that anger. So this is not the same as suppressing the anger, it's about dissolving the anger. And anger has an ability to make us do things that are very destructive. So when we indulge in anger, we often end up destroying relationships that could be very precious, relationships at work, and we start burning bridges. Even though we may be leaving a company, we don't burn bridges, but we will if we're angry at the company or at the people that we blame on the outcomes that we don't desire. And resentment is holding on to the anger and holding on to the blame. This will certainly take our happiness away, and it becomes a very painful world to continue existing in because it's all here and it keeps going on and on, day in, day out. Fear also is a thief of our happiness. A lot of times we don't even want to do something. We don't want to go out because we fear. We don't want to take a decision that may be leading us a different path, even though our heart is telling us to go for it. Fear has the ability to paralyze us. And this is all coming from the mind. How about happiness? How does happiness feel? Now, you know it when you're happy. Your body feels lighter, your energy level goes up, and your mind opens up. And this is achieved when we are present. Not sitting there thinking about what had gone wrong in life, and not even thinking about all the things that have gone right and then not living the present moment. And a lot of times we spend a lot of time planning, but we're not living. Or thinking about what could go wrong in the future. Now, this is a tendency of the mind because it has such a strong desire to survive. And so it keeps telling us not to do this, not to do that, be careful this, be careful that, and we end up feeling paralyzed. So that has everything to do with our perception. What is your perception of life? What is your perception of living? The thoughts that we have in our mind creates the mood. And the mood colors our world. So when we have thoughts that are fearful, that are angry, that are feeling those emotions, we're going to have a foul mood. And our world would be gray and dark, or red and hot. But if we have pleasant thoughts, we have kind thoughts, compassionate thoughts, generous thoughts, our color, the mood will be changed and the color of the world brightens up. So first of all is to acknowledge and to be aware that our thoughts is what affects our mood. And it's not somebody else out there. It's not your child or your friend who's causing you to be moody. And this has everything to do with how our mind perceives what is happening. The expectations that we have, our beliefs, our values, and even our biasness. If we have a lot of prejudices, that will affect our world. We don't see other people as being equal, as being deserving. Because if we have prejudices, they affect us in how we interact with them. When we believe in something that is unhealthy, we will end up living a life that will not be one that is as happy as can be. If we have high expectations of ourselves and others, we're just going to set ourselves up to be disappointed. Let's have a look at the unhappiness with life equation. Sometimes putting in a mathematical model makes it very clear. When we have expectation of what life should be and what life actually is, that's when life sucks. Especially when the delta, the difference between these two, are large. So what do? Because it's normal to have these expectations because somebody tells us or somebody is prompting us that we should expect more in life, including expecting more salary, and then we didn't get such a high increase, we'll get disappointed. But what if we can accept what life actually is? We immediately have a shift in perception and a level of our happiness goes up. Now you may think, well, does that mean that we're just going to take everything as it comes and not try to make any change or improvement? Not at all. The fact is, when we can accept what life is, we can actually focus on what is it that we can do, given that this is the way things are at this moment. So I give you the example of when we realized that we could not hold the Singapore Mindfulness Conference in a physical venue. When we accepted that, without blame and without criticism, we were then able to focus on how we were going to transition this conference to still make it a reality. And now we're seeing a much bigger success because we have 4 times more people registered for this conference than in the past. So acceptance is not a sense of resignation, like giving up. Not at all. Acceptance is actually an active appreciation of what the current situation is and making the most of it. The same equation can be applied to people. How people should be, how people actually are, is what makes certain people suck because we have a certain expectation of them. What if we can accept them? That's just the way they are. And we're not going to try to change them. Why is that? Because we just can't change someone else. Like I can't dictate how you should be. It's not possible. Or someone coming to me is, Angie, I want you to change. That will only happen if I want to change. It has to come from me. And if someone accepts me as I am, and I reflect on how I would like to be different, that's when the change starts. But if someone pressures me to change, I would probably stick my heel in the ground and says, why should I? So I hope this gives you some insight that if you like someone to change, it is not by telling them, imposing our beliefs on them, but by giving them space, suggestion, accepting them as they are, and give them the time and space to choose. This is a man I admire a lot. And I'd like to share with you some of his quotes from his book, Conversations with Myself. In real life, we deal not with gods, but with ordinary humans like ourselves, men and women who are full of contradictions, who are stable and fickle, strong and weak, famous and infamous. So what mindfulness teaches us is how to be open and non-judging to the different types of people there are in this world, and not to expect them all to be the same. People will change their minds. There are some who are strong and some who are weak, some who are famous and some will be infamous, meaning that they will do things that you would frown upon, but is to be able to accept them all. And his insight was, until I changed myself, I could not change others. Many people direct blame at others and the world, and never at themselves. If you cannot change, notice your flaws, you cannot improve and communicate with the flawed. So, first step is to acknowledge our own flaws and work on them. Because if we were to say to anyone, you have to change, they will be looking at us. What about you? So when we actually transform our mind, we actually end up transforming the world, which is what Mandela did. But changing what is in this mind requires self-awareness. And that's why mindfulness practice becomes such an important tool, skill to develop for this purpose. We're all dealt with a deck of cards. We all have a different deck of cards in life. Some of us are luckier than others. Some of us are less fortunate than others. Some of us are more privileged, some of us are not. Some of us are born with certain talents, and some of us aren't. Whatever it is to accept and make the best with the situation. So if you're at a table playing cards, there's no point scolding the dealer, criticizing the cards. You just have to play in the best way you can with the deck of cards that you've been dealt with. And I would pose to you this question: do you know your self-worth? Do we allow others to define our self-worth? This is part of the mental transformation. How often does your confidence get crushed because someone said something unkind to you or makes a critical comment, and you feel that you're not worth as much? So I'm going to now use this example. I think you all see this note. It's a $10 Singapore note. If you were in front of me and I said, would you like to have it? Chances are you would say yes, because you know the value of it. Now I'm going to crush it. Now it's a crushed $10 note. If I offer it to you, would you still want it? I would think so, because you know the value hasn't changed. So whatever your value is, stays the same. It doesn't matter if someone has said something nasty or critical to you, put you down, and you may feel crushed. but your value doesn't change. Another question I have for you is, do you know your destination in life? Do you feel that life is a rat race? Funny thing is, actually the rats don't race. And if you're racing, where are you racing to? Who are you racing with? A lot of times it's all in the mind. Comparing with peers, comparing with former classmates, comparing with your siblings, your classmates, your cousins. How does that help you to be celebrating your own achievements? The only destination that we are all assured of and real is death. Some people work so hard, accumulate so much wealth with their health at stake. Is it worth it? After making all that money, working so hard for all the promotions and accumulation of wealth at the expense of your health? So this became very real to me, what life is about, when I was taking a course in Ireland. And I was encouraged by the lady who was running the Airbnb to take a drive up to Sally's Pass. So a few of us and I hopped in the car and started driving. And we will focus on getting to Sally's Pass. When we arrived there were a few cyclists who managed to reach there earlier than us. And I stopped the car next to one of the cyclists and rolled down my window. And I said, "Is this Sally's Pass?" He said, "Yes." I said, "What am I supposed to see here? There's nothing. Everything's flat." And he laughed at me. He said, "You were supposed to enjoy your drive up here." And that really hit me with an insight that I was so focused on getting to the destination, I actually didn't enjoy the journey. Oh, I didn't appreciate everything that was along the journey, like this beautiful scenery, because I was driving at 60 miles per hour or 100 kilometers per hour to reach Sally's Pass. Life is a journey. There are no destinations. There may be goals, but you soon realize when you live long enough that each time you hit a milestone or you reach a certain goal, the happiness there is short-lived. And then we end up setting yet another goal. And this is something we end up doing to our kids. Instead of telling them, enjoy school. There's more to just studying, because education is not just about studying and getting grades. It's also about learning social skills, learning how to interact with people, how to organize things, how to plan things, how to make things happen. Playing sports, learning what it means to lose and how losing enables us to learn how to play better for the next game, to be able to let go of the previous game and sharpen and improving our skills for the next game. Because whatever game that finishes, it's over. To be able to pick ourselves up and go on to the next thing. It's like every expert starts off being a beginner. And every success has had many failures. So please encourage your children to enjoy their childhood, which they only have one, and also to enjoy our life, because this is as young as we can be. Tomorrow we're going to be older again. Another day has gone by. So this is a man who spent 27 years in prison. And this quote is just amazing, because after he came out of prison, he was not filled with anger and resentment towards the white people who put him behind bars, tortured him, and killed many of his fellow men. And this is what he said. As I walked out the door toward the gate that would lead to my freedom, I knew if I didn't leave my bitterness and hatred behind, I would still be in prison. So I ask you, how many prisons have you built in your mind? Situations, experiences that you have not been willing to let go. I'm sure none of us have been tortured and imprisoned 27 years, and this man has. And how did he do it? That was a choice he has to make. Is he going to come out of prison bitter or better? Please ask yourself too. Do you want to be a bitter person or a better person? He realized that resentment is like drinking poison and then hoping it will kill your enemies. So he could sit in his cell in the prison and hate his enemies. How's that going to help him? How's that going to help his nation? Just as the anger that we harbor, how is it going to help us? How is it going to help your family? How is it going to help your life? He realized that forgiveness doesn't change the past, but it does change the future. And that's why he decided to forgive. What a lot of people didn't know is that he does meditation. He transformed his mind. So he said in his book, the cell gives you the opportunity to look daily into your entire conduct, to overcome the bad and develop whatever is good in you. Regular meditation, say about 15 minutes a day before you turn in, can be very fruitful in this regard. You may find it difficult at first to pinpoint the negative features of your life, but the 10th attempt may yield rich rewards. So if you, for some reason, been asked to take no pay leave, you've been asked to leave the company, look at it as an opportunity, the time you have now, to practice transforming your mind so that you will have a happier future. Even if you go to a place like this, it's beautiful, it's calming, but if you close your eyes, that world you experience in your mind may be turbulent. So it's not the place, it's what's going on in here. You could be meditating in a hut like this in a forest that doesn't look so pretty. But if you have peace in the mind, your experience will be blissful. Another inspiration I'd like to share is about these boys. They were the ones trapped in a cave for up to 8 days. When they were found, they were not in panic, they were not crying, they were not terrified. Look at the beaming smile. And what was different for them? They meditated in the cave. They did not get sucked in by the fear to the point that they just had all these negative thoughts. Oh, they're going to die. They're not going to be able to see their family anymore. And maybe they get angry with their coach for allowing them or taking them into this cave. And now they're stuck there. They're all going to die there. They had very little food and they had to go on ration. But they didn't panic. So I'm going to show you a little clip on their interview with Alan. And you can hear from them what they said about their experience.
They weren't scared and they always had hope, and they know that if they don't come out, eventually someone will have to come in and get them out anyway.
Yes. Okay. So that's amazing that you didn't lose hope and lose faith. How did you remain calm?
พี่เอกก็บอกว่าให้น้องๆทุกคนมานั่งสวดมนต์ก่อนนอนเพื่อจิตใจจะได้สงบและจะได้คิดหาทางออกได้ครับแล้วก็จะได้มีสติที่ให้น้องๆทำสมาธิเนื่องจากว่าให้น้องๆสติไม่ฟุ้งซ่านและอีกอย่างเพื่อเซฟพลังงานของน้องๆไว้ด้วยครับ
So T right here said that the coach told them to pray and meditate so that they can stay calm, and then they will be conscious, and that when they're calm, they can figure out what they want to do next. While the coach added that when they meditate, they conserve energy so that they're not using too much energy while in the cave.
Meditation is key. Meditation is so important, and to come into play at a time like that, it proves that, I mean, to keep you calm, that's amazing. Okay.
So that's why meditation, mindfulness is taking the world by storm, because it is a skill that works for every mind, because everyone has the human condition of fear, of anger, of resentment. And we allow anger and resentment to burn us up, we won't have much energy to think of ways to do things better. And if we allow ourselves to be indulging in fear, we will also burn up the energy and getting nowhere. So another quote by Nelson Mandela: "I learned that courage was not the absence of fear, but the triumph over it. The brave man is not he who does not feel afraid, but he who conquers that fear. May your choices reflect your hopes, not your fears." So I thought these examples are inspiring, and that mind transformation is possible. If the boys didn't focus on meditating in the present moment, and they kept their eyes open and looking at around them in that cave, what would their experience have been? But instead they came out of the entire experience feeling optimistic. They didn't have PTSD, which is post-trauma stress disorder, because they didn't have a mind that kept ruminating on the fears that they experienced, because they didn't indulge in fear. So our relationship with ourselves set the tone for every other relationship that we have. So having a healthy relationship with ourselves is really important. And that relationship happens here. Life comes at us in waves. We can't predict or control those waves, but we can certainly learn to surf them. Just like this pandemic has come our way. We didn't expect it. We didn't order it. We can't control it. We can't even predict when the pandemic is going to end, in what form and shape. But we can certainly focus on what is it that we can do and spend our energy doing that. So mindfulness will sharpen our awareness, so we are aware of what we're thinking as we're thinking it. We're aware of how we feel when we're feeling it. And we're aware of what we're doing while we're doing it. And this is what enables us to do the intervention to reduce any of the negativity that we're experiencing. So there are foundational attitudes as part of the mindfulness journey. I would like to introduce 6 of them, not just 5. I added another one last minute, so I didn't change the title up there. Curiosity. Curiosity is what helps us to stay present. When we are curious, we will then seek to understand and discover. Kindness. John Francis talked a lot about this. Kindness to ourselves and others. To be able to put aside judgments, our negative thoughts. Acceptance enables us to let go, which are the 3 components, in fact. Putting judgment aside, accepting and letting go are the 3 components of forgiveness. And gratitude, to appreciate what we have now in the present moment. So what is your inner world like? Do you feel like you're trapped? Or do you feel that you're free? Has everything to do with how you perceive the world and how you perceive yourself. So that is the inner transformation that's going to change you from feeling trapped to being free. So I'd just like to remind you what Mandela said. As I walked out the door towards the gate that would lead to my freedom, I knew if I didn't leave my bitterness and hatred behind, I'll still be in prison. So I invite you to start your journey of letting go whatever pains that you've been holding in your heart. and to be inspired by these boys and the coach for how they coped with the crisis. Not by complaining, not by blaming, not by criticizing or predicting the worst, but by focusing on being present, meditating, conserving energy. So I'd like to end with these few slides. Let your past make you better, not bitter. Forgiveness does not change the past, but it does change the future.